She says, I spent $32,000 on Affirm and Klarna. And my first reaction is yikes. That is a lot of money for buy now, pay later. So that's a huge balance. My first question is, why did she decide to use buy now, pay laters versus credit cards versus savings? And then also, where's her account balance at right now? Just for a little bit of context, I think the average account balance for a person who uses buy now, pay laters is between $400 to $1,500. So to see that she has 16 to 32x that is major. That's a lot. And I want to know what she spent that on. Was it purely essentials? Was it a little bit of non essentials, little lifestyle, comfort spending, or was it a hodgepodge of both? My gut is telling me she spent it on a little bit of everything, but let's watch and find out.
I have spent $32,196.23 on Affirm since 2022.
Woo! That's a lot in a short amount of time. Since 2022, I think she said. So it's been 3 years and she racked up 32 grand. Okay. All right. Okay. We gathering the facts.
And the big question is, what did I purchase? If you are new here,
Yes, friend. What did you purchase?
hi, my name is Diva, and I am $107,000 in debt, and I am the Klarna girl. Yep.
Okay. Don't know if I want to be known as the Affirm and Klarna girl. I guess maybe for like brand sponsorships. I don't know. Maybe. But then also $107,000. Hopefully that includes the big stuff like mortgage, auto loan, and student loans if she has any of those. And that's not just consumer debt, buy now, pay laters, credit cards, and personal loans. Honestly, that number is not really surprising to me because the average household in America has $175,075 in household debt, including mortgage and auto loans. She's right up there with the average for context.
When I started this journey, I had $9,500 in debt to Klarna. I now have it under $3,000.
And that's amazing. The timeline is confusing me though. Like, at what point did you have 32? At what point did you have 9,500? I guess it doesn't really matter because it's down to 3,000, which is fantastic. What that tells me is at some point she had a realization and was like, enough is enough. I can't keep having a high balance when it comes to buy now, pay later. And one of two things happened. She either got like a major check from somewhere and just put it all or most of it towards her Affirm and Klarna accounts, or she really buckled down and got disciplined with her finances and chipped away at it a little bit at a time. Or it could be a mixture of both. Like she was chipping away at it, but then when she had tax refunds or bonuses from work come in, she would put a chunk of it towards debt. I think what people fail to really talk about when it comes to the nuances of getting out of debt is there really is no shortcut, right? Oftentimes it takes a whole lot longer to get out of debt than it takes to get into debt. And that's something that people don't really talk about or really consider. Like, it's fun to spin a bag and live outside your means. It ain't fun when you got to figure out how to pay it off. But shout out to her because to get it down to 3 grand from 32, over $25,000, $26,000 paid off, that takes discipline. As someone who has been down that road of paying off $15,000, I definitely can understand. And kudos to her because it's not easy. A lot of people just put it off forever, thinking or hoping that it's going to fix itself. And she was courageous enough to buckle down and get it paid down. So shout out to her. Go on, Diva.
And we are about to pay off 8 of those suckers next week.
8 of what? 8 of what? 8 different accounts? 8 different transactions or purchases? That's a lot, friend. It doesn't surprise me because the balance is relatively high, but 8 different transactions to maintain and manage is a lot. I'm more of a keep it simple type of person, maybe a few accounts. In full confession, I've actually used Affirm. I use Affirm to purchase like some furnishings, and I really like buy now, pay laters when it's used correctly and when it's used strategically. I think there's definitely benefits over using credit cards, specifically if your credit card has a really high interest rate. Because oftentimes with buy now, pay later, the pros is one, they sometimes do like soft credit checks versus hard credit checks or hard inquiries, which we know the hard things will show up on your credit report and the soft checks typically do not. I think oftentimes when it comes to buy now, pay later, another benefit is that they calculate if they do charge you interest. Some of them do 0% interest, but if they do charge you interest, it's often based on a simple interest rate versus a compound interest rate that credit cards use. And then I also like the fact that it's very convenient and it's very easy to use Klarna and Affirm during the checkout process versus having to go find your credit card or get your credit card if it's not linked to like your Apple Pay or something like that. So the ease of use, the simple versus compound interest, and the fact that you can break up your payments over time into smaller amounts, it may make sense if you're in a position where strategically you want to save, you don't want to deplete your savings or pull from your savings to pay for purchases, and you know that you have the income coming in. I think what trips most people up is when they get to the point where they lose all control in terms of impulse and they rack up more debt on these buy now pay laters than what their income can actually support. And then to add insult to injury, they don't include those new monthly payments into their budget. And even if they do include it in their budget, they can't afford to make the payments. So now they start missing payments and now fees is tacked on top of those payments. That's when it could really be a recipe for disaster. In its truest and purest form, buy now pay laters can definitely be used strategically, and they can be used in a way that is of the benefit to the consumer, as long as the consumer is not going overboard and they're making those payments on time.
But what did I purchase? This is a question everybody always has. Honestly, everything. I have done grocery. I have purchased concert tickets. I have purchased Airbnb. I have gotten my car fixed on Affirm and Klarna.
Okay. So she said a couple things. Our suspicions were correct. She was using it for groceries. She used it for car repairs, which are essential expenses. And then she also used it for Airbnbs and concert tickets, which are more non-essential expenses. So it was a combination of both, which is what we assumed. The only question that I would have for her at this point, after hearing all of this information, is why not savings? Why not savings? Did you not use savings because you didn't have a savings? If you don't have a savings, how do we get you to the point where you have a savings? Then if you decided to use buy now, pay later instead of your savings because you have a savings, what was the rationale behind that? Did it make sense? Not saying she should have used savings or she should not have used savings. These are just questions to throw out there. I think one thing that I want to highlight when it comes to the nuance of buy now, pay laters, oftentimes we as people, the majority of us, are forced into a situation where we have to finance. Why are we forced into a situation where we have to finance? Because we don't have a savings, because we've never gotten to the habit of setting money to the side. So anytime a purchase comes up, whether it be emergency or non-emergency, the first thought is to finance it. Whereas if you have a savings, that puts you in a position to where you have the option. It ain't nothing like having options, but you have the option on, do I want to cash it out because I don't want to deal with these small payments month after month? I just want to buy it outright and have it and it's mine. Or does it make more sense to conserve my savings, to save my savings for whatever reason? And yeah, I'm going to take the option to buy now, pay later because I'm getting it at 0% interest and I can make these 6 payments or 12 payments over time and smaller, allowing me to keep my savings in a high yield savings account and continue to accrue interest income. Those are the types of conversations you can start to have when you put yourself in a position to have a savings. Not only that, but it makes you more financially flexible, more financially agile. Like you have some authority and some say in what you do, and you're not forced into a situation. That's why I will always be a proponent of having a savings. And that is the impact of having a savings, is that you have options. But if you don't have a savings, there's no option, or there's only one option. And that option may not be the most favorable for you, but you really ain't got no choice. So that's my first question. Why, where, how much is the savings? And what was the rationale on not using it for these transactions?
All kinds of stuff. I think I've even gotten gift cards for random stuff. You can pretty much purchase anything you want almost.
You can purchase anything you want. And now that's a scheme that Ty set up. Let me know if you catch the reference. No, but you can buy just about anything on these buy now, pay laters, and that is by design. We, as the adults in the room, have to practice the restraint and figure out what we're willing to spend on using buy now pay laters and what we're not willing to spend. And not only what and what not, but also how much, right? Because you got to cap it at some point. You can't go above what your income can support, essentially.
On Affirm. And I do get questions like Affirm. Yes, I have 12-month plans. I have not purchased on anything on Affirm probably since last February. So it's been almost a year. And a lot of.
So it sounds like she got to the point where she stopped using them and she started paying them down, which is another key point, because oftentimes when we start these debt reduction or debt elimination journeys, our behaviors and our habits don't change. We're still swiping that card while we're trying to pay it off. That makes absolutely no sense. I love the fact that she was like, okay, I haven't used it in a year. As a result of not using it, she was able to make progress and actually pay it down. That's amazing.
These are finally coming to the end, but also I've paid off a lot. I literally had 50 of these when I started this journey in May. It's crazy. It's insane. I know what I'm saying is insane. However,
yes. I thought 8 was a lot. She had 50 of them. Okay, so where my mind goes is like these Affirms and Klarnas were only part of her budget, right? It was only the debt part, a part of the debt part. But what happens if she has other credit cards, if she has other debts, how's she tracking her bills and spending? Like that would be so much to account for, so much to track. Hopefully she has it written down somewhere. But to avoid like that, keep it simple. 1, 2, 3 accounts max, maybe, before you like paid it off and then you gotten another one. But 50? Hopefully this wasn't 50 at one time. Hopefully this was like I had 10, paid 2 down, got 4 more, paid 3 off, and it totaled 50. And it wasn't 50 at once. Because that is a lot.
I am saving my very last payment on Affirm. It was something that I actually don't regret spending money on. I regret financing it.
Okay, she said a word there. She said, I don't regret spending money on it, but I regret financing it. And that goes back to my other point where I was talking about having the option. Because I wonder if she had the option to cash it out, or was it so much that she had to finance it? She didn't have the option because she didn't have extra cash lying around. She didn't have a savings. And more importantly, I wonder if whatever she's talking about, if there was interest attached to it and she had to pay that, or was it at a 0% interest rate? These are all questions that are coming up in my mind because what that tells me is she has some regret around financing it. If she, I think going forward, would she decide to buy it outright? If she were to do it all over again, would she buy it outright? If she couldn't buy it outright, is that because she doesn't have the extra cash? So going forward, how do we put Diva in a situation where she is able to save a little bit of her check every month? So later on down the line, when this purchase comes up again or another purchase comes up, she has the option because she has a cash laying there.
But it was pretty big and it was a once in a lifetime experience. I don't regret.
Good for her. Good for her. She don't regret it, which I probably wouldn't either. Once in a lifetime experience, even if I got to put it on a credit card, okay, cool, whatever. I'll figure it out, right? I'll figure it out. I'm only human. But also, best case scenario is you pay for it outright, and that way that debt ain't sitting on your shoulders when that experience is over.